So I'm going to talk briefly about the three parts. I will say that the examiner, the IELTS examiner, will speak with you from 11 to 14 minutes. There's not an exact time, and the reason is we will be able to see how your speaking is. If we're satisfied in just a couple of minutes that your speaking is at a high level, then we may end the interview around 11 or 12 minutes. If we feel that we need to ask several more questions just to test or push your abilities a little bit, then it will take about 14, maybe 15 minutes. So I'll just have the 11 to 14 minutes, and it's flexible as we do the interview and ask you questions. So in part one, I want you to think about why are the teacher asking these types of questions. Part one, the questions are going to be more general and helping you with topics that you should be familiar with. So general questions. And these types of questions will include about your work or your school, different types of food, something about your home city, your home country. Maybe if you're in another, like if you're doing the exam in Canada, for example, it might ask about comparing something from your country, something that's here. You'll be interacting on questions that are general, and they should be familiar to you. Now, the purpose of this is so that we can help you relax. Keep in mind, we're people that are just asking you questions. We ask 15 or 20 different people during the afternoon are the different questions. So we're just asking to get to know you a little bit, help you calm down, help you to be thinking. In this section, we're going to be evaluating how fluent are you. So if you're very nervous and you're speaking and then you pause and I'm not sure, maybe. If you're already nervous and not answering well here, we're going to have the understanding your IELTS mark will be a little bit lower. If you're answering these questions very smooth, for example, tell me about your home city. Oh, my home city is Winnipeg, Canada. It's a city of under 1 million people. It's very beautiful parks in the summer, and in the winter there's lots of snow. That's smooth, it's flowing, and these questions you should be able to respond and practice and speak very smoothly. In part two, the format is a little bit different. In this section, you're going to be given a question, and on the question, there's going to be 3 or 4 parts. So it will have the topic, maybe about your favorite food, a famous person, about music, and then it will say several questions. What do you like about this person, or what kind of food do you like? When did this happen? We're going to be asking you questions that you maybe aren't as familiar with, but the response has to be between 1 and 2 minutes. So you're given 1 minute to think about the question, and then you need to speak in 1 to 2 minutes when you respond to the question. And so in this section, you want to practice speaking in a paragraph. So when I look at the question, I see there's 3 or 4 sub-questions or smaller questions. I want to respond in about 5 to 8 sentences, and in my information, I need to answer those questions. So if the topic is about a famous person, I would say, okay, a famous person for me in Canada is our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. And then I know that I know about him because he became our Prime Minister 3 or 4 years ago. His father was a politician. So I'm giving some information or details based on that question, but I need to respond 5 to 8 minutes. How do you practice this at home? So here's secret number 1. When you're at home and you have a question, a practice question, and later we will post some common questions for you to practice, I recommend that you look at the question and the parts, you write down a paragraph, what is your answer? And then you speak out loud and you time yourself. You see how long does it take me to read and speak this paragraph. because again, your goal is to be speaking between 1 and 2 minutes. And so in part 2, it's to help you in that section. I'm just going to grab another marker and then I'll give you some advice for part 3. So in part 2, we have the 1 to 2 minutes. In part 3, the time you have this is where we have flexibility, and so this is where it makes the difference. Do we spend about 6 or 7 minutes here? Do we spend 8 or 9 minutes in this section? And so in part 3, we're going to ask extended questions. What this means is you can't answer this with one short, simple sentence. You need to be answering with 3 to 4 sentences. I'll even say 3 to 5 sentences. So it's like a mini paragraph. If I want more details or more information, I will then ask another question on the same topic. If I want to move to a new topic, then I will just move. So if I'm talking about technology, then I may move and talk about space or about grandparents or about children. This is where I have the flexibility and I can ask deeper questions or move to new information. In these types of questions, as a teacher, some of the questions will be about past tense or the future tense. So what would you think would happen in 50 years? Or if you look at 100 years ago, what was life like, or culture, or food? The reason we're asking you about the past or the future, the past tense or the future, we're trying to understand how are you using the grammar. Can you use past tense verbs or future tense verbs? Also, we will ask about problem solution or comparison contrast. We want to see the types of transition signals that you're using as you speak. Oh, in the past, it was like this in my country, however, but, on the other hand, now this is what's happening. So in this section, we're looking at your information, the content, but we're also looking at grammar, your transition signals, and then of course your fluency. Are you making many pauses as you think, or are you able to speak more like a native speaker? It's okay to say and ah when you're speaking, or to have little pauses. Even as a native speaker, I sometimes pause or I think of an idea and then I give the example. But we're looking at how fluent are you and how smoothly are you speaking. So I said I was going to give you 2 secrets. So secret number 1 that we want to look at is I can memorize many different topics, which is very difficult. That's the way that some students and some people think, oh, I'll just memorize about many different things so I can just repeat at the interview. But I don't know the questions that the IELTS examiner will ask me. The other way of studying is to look at a style or a form, and then any topic can go into that. That's why in part 2, I recommend for students to write a paragraph. Even in part 3, you're saying short paragraphs, because that information is now in a structure. It doesn't matter if it's about children or about technology or about other topics. You give a topic sentence, you give a first idea with an example, and then you give a second idea with an example, with the details. In Western ideas, in our Western culture, we often are looking for specific details. How long did it take? How far was it? Don't just say, oh, it's very far from England to Canada, or from Dubai to Toronto. We need to say how many hours or what cities you have to stop in while you're traveling. If you're talking about your day, don't just say, well, I'm busy in the morning because my family, and then they get ready for school, then I go to work, and then I come home. Give specific information. Well, in the morning I get up around 5 or 5:30, I say my prayers, I then have my family ready for breakfast, and they go to school at 7 a.m. Then I go to work by 7:30. Be very specific in your details. The last secret that I will share with you for today is when you're confused or you're not sure what to answer, you can often give an example about time or about money. So if we say, well, what do you think will happen in 50 years? I don't know maybe what will happen, but I can be thinking, okay, well, will this cost more? Will it be cheaper? Or what about with our time? Will people spend more time on this, or will they spend less time on this? If I'm asked a question about your home city, what is it like? How is the transportation? Oh, well, many people drive cars. The price of gas is $1 per liter. If I'm driving down from my work to my home, it takes me about 20 minutes. You see that my examples, everything I'm saying is going to be detailed, and I can use time or money with that information. So those are the secrets that we are sharing with you today, and just the general format. We will now go into a session where we will interview and ask some questions, and then you will see how I respond or what corrections I make for the IELTS person who is giving the speaking. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Welcome to your IELTS exam. Please have a seat.
Thank you very much.
Can I see your ID, please?
Yes, please.
Okay. And can you tell me your full name?
My name is Samir Hamad.
Okay. And are you working or studying right now?
I am an engineer.
Okay, thank you. You are an engineer?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And so just tell me a little bit more about what is the types of things that an engineer is doing?
I am an electronics engineer.
Okay.
And I'm here in Canada practicing my engineering.
Okay.
I came through an international not express entry, it was before the express entry.
Okay.
It's called the skilled worker.
Okay, yes.
Yes. And through that program I came here and I found I have to do credentials.
Yes.
So I joined the committee or the organization which regulates the work in the engineering field.
Okay.
It's called APEGM that time,
Okay.
which is today called EGM, Engineers Geoscientists Manitoba.
Okay.
And I had to do an interview,
Yes.
give my credentials, my certificates, the English language proof.
Yeah.
Then I had to go into a challenge. Usually engineers are asked to do, especially from the Middle East, to go to the university and do 2, 3, 4 subjects,
Okay.
study them and come back
Yeah.
to become an engineer in training.
Okay.
And with my experience, that doesn't mean anything. You have to be in the system.
Yes.
So I went into something different because of the long experience.
Okay.
It's called the challenge. In this, they do a panel, and the panel, like a judge and a court,
Yeah.
they question you in practical theory and projects which you have done in your life.
Okay.
And I passed that.
Okay.
And I
Excellent.
became an engineer in training.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'll just ask some other general questions. Do you prefer to live in an apartment or in a house?
By nature, I mean, I was living when I was a child in a house.
Okay.
Where you have a backyard. You can, in my country back home, I was growing pets, of chicken,
Yeah.
ducks, geese, other things.
Okay.
But when I came here as a newcomer,
Yes.
I started in a condominium or a flat, we call it.
Okay.
And then after 1 year, we moved to a house
I see.
where it is spacious, you have more rooms,
Yep.
you have a backyard, you can plant, you can do things.
Yep.
Yes.
With that. Okay. Good. And what is your favorite meal of the day? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Food, talking about food, I like food.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, but you know, breakfast is very important, especially here in Canada.
Yes.
The time between the morning and the meal when you come back home is a long interval.
Okay.
So it's, I mean, when we say 7-8 hours plus transportation,
Yes.
I like to have a good breakfast in the beginning.
Okay.
Then I like my meal to be
Yes.
good meal in the afternoon.
In the afternoon.
Yes.
Okay. Good. So we will stop here and then we will go through some general comments for part 1.
Okay,
Okay.
please.
So at this stage, we've completed part 1. As I've been asking some general questions, the first question Dr. Samir has answered very smoothly, And so I know as an examiner, as the IELTS examiner, I don't have to spend too much time in this first few questions. He's already relaxed. He's already speaking fluently. He used some excellent vocabulary, talking about spacious, talking about with the engineering background and a bit of the process. Some of that maybe could have been actually a bit shorter at this part, even just 2 or 3 sentences. And then if I want more details, I will ask. But in the start, we may jump from several different topics because we're just trying to see a little bit of 3 or 4 different ideas. So you notice about his training, then I move to apartment or house, then I move to talk about food. Generally very easy to answer questions.
Yes.
And I also liked when he was answering with, he talked about the backyard and living in a house. He compared when he was growing up as well as what it was like when he first came to Canada. Those types of things I'm already putting in my mind as I'm making notes, that these are good points, and he's able to draw those comparisons even at these early part of the exam.
Good.
Okay, so let's move into part 2.
Okay.
So in part 2, as mentioned, you have 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to see the question and the sub-questions. There's usually 3 or 4 parts of the question: who, what, where, why. And then you have 1 to 2 minutes that you respond. So in this part, you're given paper and you're given the question. And so this is the question that I want you to answer. Talk about a dinner with friends that you had recently. In your response, please say who organized the dinner, what kind of food did you eat, and what did you talk about during the dinner, as well as some other information. So you have 1 minute to think of some ideas, and then I will start with the 1 to 2 minutes as you speak.
I think I'm ready for this.
Okay, so you keep the notes,
Okay.
and then I will look at, okay, so tell me about a
food?
dinner that you recently had, yes.
Okay. One of our friends was accepted at the university in Ontario.
Okay.
That was the start, really, of this dinner,
Okay.
where my sons are his colleagues, friends,
Yes.
since the high school time. And they decided that they want to surprise him before he go to the new life, the new study, the new university.
Good.
They, without his knowledge, organized the party.
Okay.
It was in a restaurant, and they invited about 20 of his colleagues. It was a big party.
Yes.
In a big restaurant. They have booked the restaurant for 2 hours.
Okay.
That's the time of the occasion for the dinner. And they collected money from each other.
Okay.
And they prepared and asked the restaurant to supply halal food.
Yes.
Because they were ethnically from a Muslim community. And they asked him to meet very near to the location.
Okay.
Without telling him that there is a meal there. And inside the restaurant, they made it looks like a birthday, a festival. They put flowers, they put flags, they put, I mean, everything you can imagine used in such a party.
Okay.
And one of them went outside, meeting him at that location, driving him around until they gave him a call saying that we are ready.
Okay.
I was invited as one of the friends of his family, and we hide behind the door.
Okay.
Asked the restaurant to make the lights dim.
Okay. Yes.
Then our friend came in saying that we have to collect a friend who is waiting for us there, and then we will move to our destination.
Okay.
Then when they came in, the light came on, the flag, every noise you can imagine, shouts, songs. Everybody was enjoying the time, and the food was organized. Some of them likes biryani, chicken biryani. Some of them likes other Asian meals. Some of them like, I mean, Arabic type food, salads.
So your 2 minutes is up.
Good.
So this is where the teacher may let you go a little bit longer, but usually they will keep to within
Yes,
the 2
I
minutes.
was just closing that.
Okay.
We have enjoyed the meal, which
Yep.
was, I mean, different foods,
Yep.
and we enjoyed the time.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So there we see, again, excellent example of giving lots of details, lots of information. Dr. Samir explained about who organized it, the people that were coming, how they were able to surprise his colleague. What we could make a few changes is a little bit of that to condense it, because we had about 5 or 6 sentences about that process, but we still had talking about the food and then what was the conversation or what was talked about at the meal. And so that's where, as we ran out of time
Yes.
towards the end, which is fine. It's not a big, it's, if I answer 3 or 4 sentences and then I stop and it's very short, that's harder than for us as examiners. But when you're going, you're speaking fluently, you have the different details, you're still going to be getting a good mark, because we see that your English ability is smooth and it's at a higher level. It's at a 7+ level, 8+ level in that area.
Good.
Okay, so let's move into section 3, part 3, and this is where we'll have some more questions, but it'll be a little bit longer and extended. Okay, so do you often have dinner with friends?
Usually, or often, we do it once in a month.
Okay,
We organize it, we leave it for the ladies, they choose the restaurant,
okay,
and we call each other, I mean, a group of families, say
Yep.
4 or 5 families,
yes, excellent.
and then we decide the time. Usually should be a weekend or a holiday,
Okay,
and we meet there,
yep,
and everyone chooses the type of food we likes.
okay,
Yeah, and the
Excellent.
children enjoys, because most of the time we choose a place where there is a place for children.
okay, excellent.
Yes.
And do you find in Winnipeg that it's easy to find such places? So there's many different choices?
Very strange if I tell you that in Winnipeg, they say if you do not success in a restaurant for food, you are not successful.
Okay,
I heard this,
okay, yeah,
and I tested many
yes,
of
okay,
the restaurants,
yeah,
different types.
yeah.
They are successful. I find what I want.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay, so we're going to jump to a new topic. Let's talk a little bit about elderly people,
Yes.
seniors.
Yes.
How are the seniors treated in your country?
In my country back home, a senior is always living with the sons and daughters,
Okay,
not usually in the elderly homes, except lately in the UAE, where I was working and living
Yeah.
for a long time.
yes,
They have started having elderly homes
Yeah.
where people, if they have, you know, the nature of life,
okay,
everyone is working, the wife, usually before, the husband is working, the wife, the Arabic culture,
yes,
the wife is at home.
okay,
But now, both are working,
okay,
so nobody to look after the elderly.
okay,
But usually, they are living with the people at home.
okay,
Sometimes they rotate
yeah,
between the sons and daughters, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks here.
right, with that. And so in your opinion, who should take care of the elderly? Should the government be providing places for them, or should the family be responsible financially and providing places?
It is really a matter of dispute. I mean, this question, I mean, touches the feelings.
Yes,
I mean, yes, the government can take care, and it will be looked, they will be looked after in a much better way.
okay,
But, I mean, in the feelings, I mean, I want my father with me. I mean, I want the blessings.
okay,
I mean, when I go home, I say good morning, good
Yes.
night. I mean, depends upon the time when I'm leaving.
Yep.
I'm going to work. Please bless me.
okay,
And when I come, hi, Dad, how are you? How did you spend the time?
yeah,
I like this.
okay,
Yes, I like
excellent.
them to be with me.
Okay, good. And let me just jump to another question. In many countries, there are celebrities. Maybe they're artists, musicians, popular leaders. And why do you think some people become or want to become a celebrity?
I believe it's part of the nature of the human being. People are different.
Okay,
There are people who like to be always in the shade, and some
Okay.
people like to be in the light.
Okay.
And when you look at people like this, I mean, when they are volunteering, say,
Yes.
some people, they want to volunteer without being known.
Okay.
Others,
yes.
they want to be known for their deeds, even if it is small.
Yep.
So it's the nature sometimes.
Good.
Yes.
And so compare now, if we look back 50 years at celebrities or people that were famous in your country, what are some differences or changes that you would see from 50 years ago or people that are famous now?
I still remember when I was a child. I mean, the people we know are the people who can advocate and talk.
Okay.
People who are well known in the community. So a mayor or somebody who was to be a mayor, wanted to be elected,
Yes.
he move around the families. In every family, they have a place to sit and gather.
Okay.
So he go and talks to them.
Okay.
But now people use the media. Everyone has a cell phone.
Yep.
They have Facebook, they have Twitter, they have others, and they just send messages and clips.
Okay.
Maybe Snapchat or anything.
Right.
That's a difference in reaching people.
Okay.
Here you can reach millions. There you could reach only the community or the city or the district.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Good. So at this stage, I haven't kept track of our total time, but it's probably been about 12 to 15 minutes. So
Yes.
we would end off, and I would just thank you for
Thank you very much.
coming in for the interview.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
good luck in your future career.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You can now comment about
Yes.
the lesson.
Yeah. So in part 3, you saw that Dr. Samir's answers were much longer, and the information that he was providing, he talked about with the food and who's organizing how often they're eating. We moved over into talking about elderly homes, and he did a good comparison and talking about from his background and culture, and then how it may be a little bit different with elderly homes, especially in the Western culture. But you also included a little bit of changes. So talking about how in previous generations it was often living at home. Now there are some, if both the husband and wife are working, there are some cases where the parents are living in the elderly home. Then he went in and moved into talking about the feelings, the blessing of being with his father or with others in the house. And that gives an emotional message, which is very good. It's detailed, and it's helping to show, I'm not a robot, you're not a robot. This is part of humans, human life, human nature from that. With the celebrity, he talked about human nature. If your English level is a bit lower, maybe you're going to be using a little bit different vocabulary. That's okay. We're trying to get you to hear what is the information you're giving. So, for example, if I have a little bit lower English with this question, why do people want to be a celebrity? Maybe you might say, be famous, many people know you. That's okay. I mean, we're judging where is a person's level of English, so whatever words you have, you don't need to be memorizing a lot of high academic vocabulary. You just need to be expressing where are you at now, and if you end up with a 5 or a 5.5 and you need a 6.5, then there's different areas that we can help improve with your vocabulary. But it's not just vocabulary. We're talking and listening for your grammar, your fluency. You need to be speaking every day. So the words that you're learning, the information that you learn from reading or writing, that is in your mind, and it's easier for you. As we say, practice makes perfect.
Yes.
And especially with writing and speaking, if you're only speaking English in a classroom once or twice a week, you're going to find your moving to a higher level is going to be very, very slow. And so in the future, we are hoping as well that we can provide some IELTS speaking topics, and that you can be practicing with other people, potentially or possibly maybe even practicing with some native speakers from Canada or from America or from England. So those are some of the things that we will look at. As I went through this, as I'm listening, I'm giving marks in 4 different sections. So the fluency in the content that the student is giving me, I'm listening in the grammar, the vocabulary, and then also the pronunciation. All of those areas, we're not looking to be perfect. We're looking at, are you communicating in a way that's easy to understand?
Yes.
There were a couple of phrases or words where maybe the pronunciation wasn't perfect,
Yes.
but I understood what he was saying, so I know, and I'm going to still give him a 7 or a 8 in that area because I can still understand the word. But if I don't understand many of the words that are being spoken, that's where I start to give a lower 5 or a 5.5. But it's always balanced in those 4 areas, not just in one area. So don't worry if you have very poor pronunciation. You just know you need to work harder in your practicing in that. If your grammar is a bit weak, we can direct you to some grammar websites to improve your grammar, but also keep working on your fluency. I'll just share one last piece of advice. When you're practicing, and we will be posting some of these IELTS questions for you to look at, write it down and then practice speaking it. Because then you hear the sound of your voice, you become more comfortable, and at the start, that gives you a good place to see, and you have it written out, and then you speak it. Record your voice, even send it in to us. We can be hearing some of the information you're giving, but you also play back yourself with that information so that you're hearing what are you saying, what are areas of strength and weakness. You don't need a native speaker to be helping you at home every single minute, every single day.
Yes.
You can be doing a lot of this on your own, helping yourself, listening to YouTube or other areas, getting and hearing what are the English accent or the Canadian accent, and then be practicing as you get coached or guided by a teacher several times a week. So I'm very happy that we had a chance to share.
Yes.
Thank you that we had a chance to go through the speaking today and through these 3 parts. And we wish you success as you prepare for your IELTS.
I think the people who are watching wanted to know how much scale or what did I score.
Did the people watching or did you want to know?
No, not myself. I'm not going for the
Yes,
test.
no, I understand.
They want to, after this discussion, they want to know. I mean, when you evaluate somebody like me,
right.
I didn't practice.
You're right.
I mean, I just came because somebody had to be here and he didn't come. So I had to act in his position.
Yes, no. And so if you look on, and we can post the PDF for this, if you look at the speaking grid, we call it a rubric. It's a square that has from 9 down to 0, and it shows at each level. If I look at a 6 and a 7, the difference is there. You're actually, for the average person, it's going, well, that's almost the same. So what I recommend is you would look at a 6, you would look at an 8, and then you can see differences between it. In our speaking, if I look at the fluency, and in the first column, the task achievement, so the content, the fluency, that information, we'd be looking at a 7.5 to an 8.
Good.
In the grammar section, I did not hear any grammar mistakes at all, so we'd be looking at an 8+ there. With the vocabulary isn't just high academic words. Sometimes it's also transition signals and the complex or simple sentences. So just short sentences or complex. A lot of your sentences were simple, then compound, so 2 sentences combined with and or but, and some complex sentences. That area I would say between a 7 and a 7.5. So just more complex sentences and then more transition signals. First of all, after this, just as in your writing, you have those certain words that we use to flow from idea or for example or another idea.
Yes.
That's an area that if you had to get an 8 or a 9.
No, I'm aiming. I will start practicing.
Yep. But those transition signals, it's helpful that in a paragraph, so in every 3 or 4 sentences, you should be speaking 2 or 3 transition signals. And there's a list that I've given in the writing.
I should have read what you have told me last time.
No problem.
A lazy boy.
Yeah, no problem. And then with pronunciation, similarly, like I said, I could understand everything. There were a couple of slight pronunciation miscues, missteps, but it would be a 7 to an 8 in that area because, and the highest I know of right now, usually 7.5 for university entrance or for professional services, nursing, doctor, etc. So in the average of that, you would pass.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.